educating, and empowering you into action. This is Warriors Talk with your host, Lady ReShell.
Hello. Welcome to Warriors Talk with author and founder Lady ReShell, where we move away from awareness towards action. It's Health and Wellness Monday, and our topic for today is A Letter to My Sisters, a breast cancer documentary for young women. We are live on Intellectual Radio. We just heard from the drive at 5 with Roman. Keep it locked right here on Intellectual Radio and allow us to feed your brain. On the last episode of Warriors Talk, I discussed what to say and not say to someone when they tell you they have cancer. Head on over to YouTube, type in Intellectual Radio, stay connected for any episodes you may have missed. The quote of the day is, when you have exhausted all possibilities, remember this, you haven't. And that's a quote from Thomas Edison. Here is your trending topic for today. According to CNN, a Southern California judge has been charged with murder in the fatal shooting of his wife. Orange County Superior Judge Jeffrey Ferguson, 72, is accused of killing his wife, Cheryl Ferguson, 65, at their Anaheim Hills home on August the 3rd after an argument at a nearby restaurant. Prosecutors claimed that the court documents said that Ferguson threatened his wife at dinner by pointing his finger, mimicking a firearm. When the couple returned home, prosecutors claim Cheryl Ferguson dared her husband to shoot her, and he took out a pistol from his ankle holster and shot her. Within minutes, document says Ferguson sent a text to his court clerk and bailiff and said, "I just lost it. I shot my wife. I won't be in tomorrow. I will be in custody. I'm sorry." The Anaheim Police Department arrested Ferguson after his adult son called 911 to report that the mom had been shot. The prosecutors recovered 47 weapons, including rifles, shotguns, and handguns, and more than 26,000 rounds of ammo at his home. Prosecutors said Ferguson was drunk when he shot his wife. He was charged with one felony count of murder, one felony enhancement of personal use of a firearm, one felony enhancement charge, discharge of a firearm causing grave bodily injury and death. He was released from custody the next day after posting bond for $1 million. Ferguson's attorney, Paul Myers, and John Burnett told CNN, "This is a tragedy for the entire Ferguson family. It was an accident and nothing more." Ferguson has served as the Orange County Superior Court judge since 2015 before the election, and he was the prosecutor for Orange County District Attorney's Office beginning in 1983. That is your trending topic for today. We are so grateful for our sponsor, Emanuel Church of God in Christ, with Pastor Michael Richardson, who has a special message for us.
Greetings, I am Pastor Michael Richardson.
And I am First Lady Anastasia Richardson from the Emanuel Church of God in Christ. We're located at 3058 West Van Buren in Chicago, Illinois. We are building upon a solid foundation.
And we're inviting you to join us every Sunday morning on Facebook Live at Emanuel COGIC at 10:15 Central Standard Time. And you can also view our videos on our YouTube channel at Emanuel COGIC-MR. Once again, this is Pastor Michael Richardson
and First Lady Anastasia Richardson, and we are from the Emanuel Church of God in Christ. We are building upon a solid foundation.
My special guest today is a 30-year-old West Philadelphia native. She is an experienced motivational speaker, activist, breast cancer advocate, writer, author, director, executive director, and woman of God. Additionally, she has been employed as a radiation therapist for the last 8 years. Welcome to Warriors Talk, Dr. Nia Imani Bailey. I knew I was going to mess up your name.
It's fine. Thank you so much for having me, Lady ReShell.
I'm going to call you Dr. Bailey. Dr.
Oh,
Bailey.
just call me Bailey. Don't call me doctor. It's okay.
Bailey, why? You've earned that. No, you put
It's
in the
fine.
work.
I mean, yes, but when I
Yes.
was born, that my parents named me Nia Imani Bailey. They didn't name me Dr. Nia Imani Bailey, so it's okay. Whatever you want to do.
Dr. Bailey. I'm calling you Dr. Bailey. You have earned that right. You have did the work. And the work wasn't easy. Trust me. I already know it wasn't easy. And
Yes.
I appreciate you again. I appreciate your yes for coming on to agree to share your experience and your wisdom with listeners. And I know that they're going to walk away blessed today.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for having
Yes.
me.
So if you are tuned in, please like, share the show, invite someone else in on the show that you feel may benefit from this valuable information. Our topic, A Letter to My Sisters, a breast cancer documentary for young women. When I was reading your information that you sent me for the questionnaire, I was like, oh my God, where do I start? Like, you wear so many hats, and I have to say, all of the hats are impactful. So I'm like, wow, when does she have time to sleep or eat? Because you are a busy woman, and I know that your patients and everybody that you touch appreciate what you do. So I just want to say, keep doing what you do because I know it's benefiting the community.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Likewise. Look at you. Look at all you're doing.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. So
Yes.
I want to start with at least one of the hats that I know that you wear, and then that's the hat of doctor. And so I want to talk about you earning your PhD in public administration. And my first question is why, and how do you feel that it can impact the community with that?
That's an excellent question. So since birth, my family has always called me doctor. I think they meant MD, but I mean, I was Dr. Nia, Dr. Nia, Dr. Nia. And it wasn't until my father was diagnosed with prostate cancer, I said, you know what? I want to be a radiation therapist. So that took me out of that MD mode. I kept going to school and I said, you know what? I want to change some policies. I want to change some frameworks. So that's what made me go into public administration to get my doctorate. And it can be impactful in so many ways. I mean, look at the way our healthcare system is today. But if I can lobby, if I can change some policies and frameworks, then a lot of things, a lot of lives can be saved. So, for example, the task force just lowered their mammogram age from 50 to 40, which is great, right? But there's women who are less than 40 who get breast cancer too. So keep pushing and poking and prodding in that public administration area so that they can lower that age as well. So the work is never done. And the reason why it can be so impactful is because it only affects not local government, but federal government as well. And if we can get federal, then we can really impact and save lives all over.
Yes, I know how important it is to lobby. I had a chance to go to Washington this year with the National Breast Cancer Task Force, and I was just in awe of the impact that we have. Your voice matters. So I appreciate you lobbying on the level that you do because it makes a difference when you look like us, and everybody counts. Let me say everybody counts.
Absolutely.
When you look like us and you have people like us that have a impactful voice, it matters. So I'm very much appreciative of that.
Thank you. Well, thank you for you going to Washington. That's huge.
Yeah, it was. I was really in awe of everything that they were doing. I was just glad to be a part of it because I know that the breast cancer thrivers are benefiting from it.
Absolutely. It's all for them. Absolutely.
Yes. So PhD, and you're using it to make a change in the community, to make sure that voices are being heard and policies are being pushed through, and individuals are getting the things that they need in order to not only survive, but to thrive.
Yes.
How does it feel to you when you see the work that you have already put in and the work that you're still doing, and you see that it's making a difference? Like, what are some of the things that your patients are saying?
That's a very good question. I would say the number one is advocacy. So it's not as bad, but now, you hear patients say, well, they said I was too young for breast cancer. They said I was too young and they were pushed off. Now, physicians are listening to their young patients and saying, okay, well, you know what? You said you felt this lump. Okay, what's going on? Let's get this appropriate screening, and finding out, well, maybe they're not too young for breast cancer. Why? Because they just were diagnosed with breast cancer and this person's 24 years old, 26 years old. So I have to say, out of the work that's being done is the advocacy part, because we are the only ones that know our bodies the way that we know our bodies. So the fact that other physicians and providers are listening to our voices, I think that is an absolute game changer. Absolute. So I just love the fact that not that they're being treated, not that we're diagnosed with breast cancer, but that somebody heard them. And that's a game changer right there, because we know stage 1 is much better than stage 4. Now, nobody wants to be in any of those stages, but the prognosis is much better at stage 1 versus at stage 4. So to answer your question, advocacy. That's what I'm most proud of.
So you're wearing a hat as a breast cancer advocate. What would you say to those individuals that go to the doctor and they are getting pushed back and pushed off and telling them that, oh, you're too young. Oh, you shouldn't be here. Oh, go home, wait a year, come back, or wait until you get to that age that you're supposed to be screening and then worry about it. What would you say to them to get their voice heard?
Great question. So number one, I never say you can't be too young for breast cancer. Why? Because there's something called pediatric cancer. So a child who's literally 5 months can get cancer. So if I'm older than somebody, then that's 5 months, then obviously I'm not too young. I can get cancer. That's number one. So that sort of nixes that and that pushes that away, right? And then it's very important to just say, you have to listen to me. As a patient, to have that patient-provider relationship, you work for me. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but there would be no doctors if there are no patients, right? So you have to, and I think once you sort of frame it that way, whether they like it or not, they have to do what they have to do. And if you feel something in your breast, they can't just say, no, you don't. They have to actually do the screening. And if they are still pushing back, you have the option of going to a different physician, a different hospital. That is your right. The reason why I got into this already is because my friend, she went to her gynecologist and she said, hey, I feel a lump. And her gynecologist said, no, that's not a lump. That's just a cyst. You're too young for breast cancer. Go about your day. So my friend, she did. And she went back to the gynecologist a year after to have her IUD taken out to start a family. She's always wanted to be a mother. So, of course, the doctor does the quick assessment. And guess what? Her eyes got so big because she felt something. So she went for the 3D mammogram, went for the breast MRI biopsy, and it turned out she had an advanced form of breast cancer, triple negative breast cancer. So I share that to share with others. You can use that story. You can use my friend's story to say, hey, this has happened. This does happen. I don't want that to be me. I need for you to check me right now. And let me just add, the reason why I go so hard for what I do is because my friend's no longer here. So advocate. There's no such thing as too young for breast cancer, because there are children that get cancer, period. Tell the stories that you've heard. And if at the end of the day, you're tired, they're not listening to you, go to another doctor. It is okay.
I know through your dissertation that you were pushing for them to change the age from 40 to 30. I just feel like important fact that you mentioned that, there's childhood cancer. So taking that into consideration, why do we even have an age right there? If someone feels something, if you're going to the doctor annually, you should be checking those things. I feel like it's setting us up to fail.
I don't disagree at all. And it's funny too, in the years past, so the doctors always say you should get an annual physical, right? You should see your doctor once a year just to sort of make sure you're all set. Well, why can't that be with mammograms, right? At least back in the day, you're supposed to have annual pap smears. Now they're trying to change it to every 2-3 years, whatever. But the annual part in it should be earlier on, to your point, because there is no age. Like I said, a child at 5 months gets cancer. So somebody who is 18 can certainly get cancer. So I totally agree with you. There should not be an age limit at all. But I think, unfortunately, insurance, right, plays a part. Money plays a part. And not only that, I've heard some providers say, well, Nia, we don't want anybody to be afraid of a false positive or unnecessary biopsy. Okay.
I've heard that.
And I won't say that's not valid as far as the unnecessary biopsy, but in my opinion, it's not unnecessary because you could have caught something that was there. Thank God that it's nothing, right? But I would rather you, and this is just me, I would rather you poke me 5 times. On that 5th time, it's something than not. Than just say, oh, we've already poked you 4 times. It's probably nothing. So, at the end of the day, I think that you have to treat people as if they're your family members or your friends or whatever. And there should not be any age. There should not be any question. When somebody comes up to you and says, I feel something, you should listen and get the appropriate screening. It should be that simple.
It should be. When we go to the doctors for answers, because it's something that we can't answer. We don't know what's going on. So when we go, we're expecting to get answers. We expect that we're in good hands. And when we walk out of there, that we shouldn't have anything to worry about. So if my doctor tells me, oh, don't worry about it, you come back in a year, then I should be able to trust that. Or
Exactly.
if you feel within your gut that, no, something's not right, and then as the doc is saying, you keep pushing, you advocate for yourself. Don't be afraid to get a second opinion. It's not to say that, oh, this doctor doesn't know what they're doing. They may not be a good doctor, but you want your peace of mind to be okay.
Absolutely.
And be here to start a family and to have kids. It's just, when I heard the story, I'm just like, I wonder what that doctor feels like.
Oh my gosh. I don't want to know, but I'm sure it's not good. Just like I have another friend who was diagnosed at 39 with colon cancer. And before the doctor did the colonoscopy, the doctor said, I'm just doing it for peace of mind. You are too young for not only cancer, you're too young for colon cancer. That's not even in your bracket. When she finished the colonoscopy, she turned to her and said, you know what? I am so very sorry. Not only having to give her the news that she's pretty sure it's colon cancer, but to say, you have taught me something. I am never, ever going to tell a patient that they are too young for anything, and I will never give them pushback ever again. And let me tell you something. This same friend 4 months later was diagnosed with breast cancer. But she's fine. She's doing good. And that's just a whole nother component about genetic and genetic testing that I could also get into. But, it's that push. She said, you know what? Something's wrong. And not to get vulgar, but she said, my stool is different. Yeah, I ate Mexican on Tuesday, but it shouldn't be rolling into the next 3 weeks. It's different. And she pushed and pushed and pushed. And this is why I always say, once again, advocacy. You advocate for yourself. I know when I'm lactose tolerant. So I know what's going to happen in a couple of days if I eat something, but I also know that it's not going to last a month. So if my stool starts changing, best believe I'm calling somebody. So advocate. But I have these stories always in my head to just know that I have that power to take with me, because I don't want to be like my friend Jacqueline. I don't want to pass from something, but I want to be like my friend Melissa and just really advocate for myself. Nobody wants to be diagnosed with anything, but like we said before, the earlier you're diagnosed, you have a better prognosis.
How important is it, Dr. Bailey, to pay attention to yourself? Like, you advocating for yourself, but if you find something, do something. I heard someone say, don't deny, but verify it. Go and get it checked out. And we see our bodies, we touch our bodies, we should know our bodies. And that's why they say do the breast exam. So when something is not right, you'll know it if you're doing the exam every month.
Yes.
How important is it to take care of yourself and to know when to go when something is not right?
Oh my gosh, it's so important. And to your point, I think a lot of us don't know what our bodies look like or what they feel like. I think we're just so busy throughout the day. So we take a quick shower, but we're not really feeling ourselves. We put lotion on our bodies, but we're not really looking at ourselves. Even people who are married or with mates, like, does your mate know your body just like you know your body? Things like that. So it's super important. If I know how my breasts feel like on my period versus not on my period, I know that when I'm not on my period, hey, this doesn't feel right. That's so important. I know by looking in the mirror how my right breast is just a little bit bigger than the other, which is fine. That's normal. But if it starts to get gradually bigger or gradually smaller, I know there's something wrong. I know that if my nipple turns inward, that's not supposed to happen. I know that if my areola starts to peel, like kind of looks like an orangey, how the orange peel kind of looks, then that's not right. So it's so important to just be in tune with your body. As far as pain, I had a patient say, my breast did not hurt. I had a pain in my arm. What turned out to be was she had a swollen lymph node and it was pressing on her nerve. But she was in tune with her body, to your point. And she knew, hey, I need to seek help. This is not my norm. That's so important to know your norm during any season, during any, fall, winter, summer, menstrual cycle or not, what it looks like. That's so important. And I also mentioned the spousal or relationship part too, because a lot of patients have also said, I didn't notice anything, but my partner did. So it's just so important for you not to only be aware and in tune with your body, but for your partner as well. Not to put pressure on anybody, but a lot of times you are so used to yourself, you may not recognize anything, but your partner is looking at you and can see some changes. So it's so important because once again, the earlier you catch something, the better.
Yes, that's true. I wanted to go back really quickly. You mentioned briefly something about genetic testing.
Yeah.
When it comes to cancers or finding out if you're at risk for cancer. And I think a lot of people, they feel like sometimes when people get cancer in their family that it's an isolated incident and it can't happen to me. So they really just go about their day. They don't really think about it. They don't think that, should I go and talk to my doctor and get some type of testing? Could I be possibly at risk for cancer?
Yeah, they think that, but yes. So genetic testing, I think the study now is genetics of cancer only makes up about 5 to 10% of cancers, but that's still, in my opinion, 0.1% is a lot. So that's still a lot in my opinion. And it's so important to know. So for me, and I always go by stories and examples. So for me, my father was diagnosed with prostate cancer. That automatically increases my risk of getting breast cancer, period. My dad, he's from a time, when was my dad born? 1951. So he's a little still on the Henrietta Lacks, little still on Tuskegee. So he wasn't getting genetic testing. That's a whole different story. So I said, Daddy, you don't have to. I'm going to do it because we're related and I need to know my risk. So I went to a genetic counselor. She put in my risk assessment, meaning, so she said, who in your family has cancer? So I list my father, I list my grandmother, I list my grandfather, I list my uncles, I list so many people. It was a family reunion. And she said, okay, we're going to get you tested. So I think I didn't do blood. I did saliva. And it came back that I don't have BRCA1, I don't have BRCA2, which there are more genes than BRCA1 and BRCA2, but I know that's like the media version of saying whether you have, something or not. But it did come back with a gene entitled BCL6, which increases my risk of getting lymphoma. So that made me so empowered. I'm not going to say I was excited, yay, let's have a party, but I was able to say, okay, let me get set up with a medical oncologist. We did scans, we did blood work to get to understand that, okay, Nia, you don't have lymphoma right now, but we're going to do scans every so often, every 3 months, every 6 months, every year, so that if you ever were to get lymphoma, we caught it early. Pay attention to your body. And I know my body so well. I also have lupus too. And it's so funny, because not funny, haha, but funny. Lupus and lymphoma symptoms are kind of alike. So swollen lymph nodes, extreme fatigue, body aches, sweats. But I know my body, well, granted, I've never been diagnosed with lymphoma, but I know my body so well. I'm like, this is not lymphoma, I don't think. I think this is lupus. But when I have to question it, I reach out to my doctor. I know when I'm having a lupus flare, I do know that. But when I'm not sure, I reach out to my doctor. And that's how in tune I am with my body. And this is what I want other people to do as well. Be in tune with your body, know your norm, and know what's not normal for you or not. So this is why genetic testing is also so important, because I have that tool to say, okay, I have a risk of lymphoma, that's fine. Let me seek help. Let me have that patient-provider relationship. So not only do I know my norm, my doctor also knows my norm as well. And that's how genetic testing plays a vital role, pivotal role in healthcare and treatment and in cancer treatments as well. But I know, like I said, when I mentioned my father, in terms of Tuskegee, and I know there's a, what is that word? It's a stigma with Black and brown individuals, regarding genetic testing and even clinical trials, things like that. And I know I feel like I'm rambling, but this is like so important to me, because it's so important to know that back then, like back in 1951, they did not have informed consent. Now they do. So that's the huge difference of why I think it's very important for Black and brown people to specifically get in clinical trials and do genetic testing, because if they don't know how to treat, if they don't have our DNA, they won't know how to treat us. And that's just a fact. Yes, we're all different. We're all beautiful. But, my friend Jacqueline, who was Caucasian, they would treat me differently than Black. And that doesn't mean it's a negative thing. It's just our DNA, our genetics are different. So I would want that personalized care. And this is why, I also talk about the breast cancer genetics and things like that, because Black and brown people need to get involved so we can get that personalized care for ourselves.
Yes, I love that. I love that. You talked about As far as the genetic testing, you talked
Uh-huh.
about the family support, and you mentioned like the different individuals in your family that had
Yeah.
cancer. How important is it to even know your family history? Because as Black people, we don't like to talk
No.
about it. We don't really tell what individuals had. You find out later, and then when you start prying and digging yourself, you're like, oh wow, so yeah, Mabel did die from cancer. So and so, how important is it to get that information from family and do what you did? You took action and you
Mhm.
set up some type of plan so that your doctor would be aware, you are aware. Like, how can people make that decision and get on board with that, knowing that information could save your life, knowing that information can save you from having harsh treatment, knowing that information could allow you to have a nice quality of life from treatment?
Absolutely. That's a very good question. I think because my family was a lot secretive, so that's just a cultural thing. I don't even know if it's a secretive. I don't know, but they just didn't say anything. My mom was the first one to be like, "I'm not like that with y'all. I have this, I have that. I don't know why I do. I do know why that." So she helped me inquire with my family. So a lot of my family, they're from a small town in Inner East, South Carolina, and when I tell you everybody has cancer. So I didn't just take that and say, okay, because but what type of cancer and at what age? Because that also is very important as well. Girl, multiple myeloma, breast, liver, pancreatic, this, the third. I said, well, I'm not visiting NRE because what's going on with NRE? Is something in the water or something? But I was able to ask all those questions because, like you said, it's very important. Then I was able to bring that to my doctor, right? So usually they do it, what's the word? So they wouldn't necessarily consider somebody who's my second aunt or my great aunt to be related just because it's not a direct bloodline. But I was able to use that for my mother. And then my uncles and my father, I was able to use that for me. So digging deep into my family cancer history or family medical history does so much for me. So I know that my family has every type of cancer from A to Z. I know with heart disease and diabetes. So that helps me. Well, Nia, maybe you should put down that cheesesteak or Twinkie because there's a high chance that you're going to get hypertension or diabetes like your family. Maybe I should exercise just as much as I can or certain things for preventative ways to decrease my risk. It doesn't, listen, and I always say my father ate air and still got prostate cancer. So I'm not saying that, it won't happen or it can't happen, but you also want to live as much as you can, a healthy life, a balanced life. So if there's certain things that I can do to sort of prevent my chance of getting certain things, I'm certainly going to do it. So to say all that, it was important for me to dig deep into my family cancer history to know what I needed to do for myself. And then when I have children as well. So I do understand some families are like, I'm not telling you nothing, and there's nothing that you can do. For people who are adopted, they don't know, and there's nothing that they can do. So when you don't know, you don't know, I would then talk to my doctor. Hey, my family is like the CIA. They won't tell me nothing. Okay. And I think a lot of providers, and once again, depending on the age, they'll say, okay, let's just set you up with the ultrasound. Let's just see what it's looking like, because you really don't know. So talking to your doctor, trying to dig deep as much as you can. And like I pointed out before, having that patient-provider relationship is so important. It's so important, and it's helpful and life-saving.
That's important, and it's true, because you'll feel more comfortable when things are going on with you. You'll be able to tell that doctor and say, hey, this is going on. You're not going to feel like you're being judged, you're being ignored. So that relationship is so important. The last time I got my annual physical, when I say that I was in the office for an hour, I was in there for an hour. I was asking her all type of questions, and we was doing all type of tests, because the doctor that I had before, she left and moved. She got pregnant, left, and she moved to Arizona with her husband. So this was a new doctor. And so this is my first time seeing her. And so we went through everything. When I say, she made me the last patient of the day, so she had time to
That's
do
awesome.
everything. And I felt satisfied when I left. I had a peace of mind, and she got to know me. It wasn't rushed. We talked about everything. We talked about from diet, because I'm a vegan, so I don't eat meat. So she talked about how to get protein, it was just a lot. And I felt really good. And I was like, wow, what if all the appointments could be this way? Which I know it can't. But it did make me feel comfortable. So if something going on with me, I wouldn't feel afraid to call her.
Yes.
Yeah.
That I totally, it's so important. I think now in healthcare, and I feel like everybody keeps saying after, since COVID, whatever, but it's like true, nobody has time, which is sad because especially in healthcare, well, I'm in need for you. What's going on with me? I'm trying to tell you something. So to your point, that's so important. You have to know me. You don't have to know me as much as I know me, but you got to know something. So when I call you, you're like, oh yeah, she's telling the truth. I have doctors like that too. I'll message them on the portal and I'm like, I do not feel well. And they know me. I'm like, okay, well, Nia, don't just say that. So there's something going on. So, oops, my phone. Okay. So it's really important to have that patient provider relationship. And I'm glad that you felt at ease after that conversation. That's so important.
Yes. And speaking of the relationship with providers, you are a radiation therapist. And I know how important it is when you're getting radiation. I had 33 rounds of radiation. How important it is
No.
when you are with the people, even if you're only in there, like, I think I was in there less than 15 minutes for my whole appointment. But being in there with those people and with the providers, and they give you discomfort while you're there, it means so much. So I know you had some good relationships with your patients that you saw during this time when you were giving radiation. And if you could just talk about that and talk about what radiation is in case someone doesn't know.
Yeah, perfect. So radiation, I always compare, as soon as I say it, I compare it to chemo. So when you think of chemotherapy, that's systemic. This is why if we're treating somebody for their breast cancer, they're going to lose their hair, their nails may be brittle, they may have problems with their feet or neuropathy, things like that. Radiation is very localized. It's very collimated. So we're only focused on that side that we're treating. So the breast, or if it's bilateral, we're treating both breasts. It's very localized, and that's very important because there's less side effects, although you're still maybe get side effects, but it's not as systemic as chemotherapy. So that's radiation. But oh my goodness, I had so many great stories. I have to say, my dad helped me in knowing this. You don't just treat the cancer, you treat the person. So I think when I first started, I'm like, so nervous. You have cancer, oh my gosh. But now it's like, hey girl, what's going on? Get on the table, because it's you. I don't know if I think this to myself, but it's a day. And sometimes you don't want to think that, oh, I have breast cancer. You're just like, I just want to get through it. Sometimes you don't want to have to feel, even though you may feel sick, you don't want to have to feel like you're sick. You just want somebody to just talk to you like you're normal, not look at you like, are you okay? And sometimes you need that, but sometimes people just want to be treated like them prior to their diagnosis. So, oh my goodness, I have patients who just like, we joke around. I know one patient, she would like tell me, stories about her and her fiance, some things I probably didn't want to know, but you really create a bond because, like you said, you've had 33 treatments. You see them so every day, Monday through Friday. So you really become friendly and sometimes friends. And a lot of my patients, we have each other's cell phone numbers, and it's like a friend love type thing. I never wanted to meet you there, but now that I have, what's up? And let's hang out afterwards. And well, once your treatment's done, we're not hanging out like, after 5 o'clock, but let's see what's going on with you. And let's, get you back to who you are, or let's create this new version of you. Right. So, oh my gosh, you'll have a specific story. I guess I don't know if I have a specific story or just listening to people and telling them I guess what I have to say. Okay, I'm all like tongue twisted. When a patient says to me, how was your weekend? So you saw your niece Sunday, right? I'm just like, you remembered that, and the same thing I do for them. And I think those are the stories that I love. So it's not just how are you feeling? Do you need Zofran? Do you need this? It's so how's Quinn doing? Is your boyfriend, he's at the airport, and just like those type of stories that makes it all worth it. It's so important, and that's how you're doing more than just a medical job. It's really treating the entire person. It's so important to do that. So I have a plethora of stories. I don't even think I named one, but just it just gives me warm fuzzies inside just to know that these are some great people going through a lot. But somehow, some way, and this, you're just able to talk about the weather or talk about the news. I don't know if I think I'll be passed out in the corner somewhere. But y'all just, you you do it. And I give kudos to you and all the patients. I just don't know how they do it, but it's just a normal conversation, normal day. It's just like they're working. Hey, how you doing? Let me finish my assignment and then I'm out. It's.
I think it helps when you have great people, to come in and take care of you and to kind of take that worry away. Then it doesn't seem as scary. I can remember, Dr. Bailey, when I used to come in with my wig on, for my treatment. And I had two African American men that was taking care of me with the radiation. So I would come in there with my wig on, and they'd be like, and then so one day they told me, "Okay, we'll see you tomorrow. Leave the wig in the locker."
Did you listen to them?
I did. And I came in, they was like, "You look beautiful. Why are you hiding your hair under that wig?" They was like, "Don't wear the wig anymore." And I was just like, I felt self-conscious, but they made me feel so good about it. I threw that wig in the locker every time I came in.
You did?
I would leave it in the car because if they would see me coming, they'd be like, "You got the
Don't come in with that."
right." Like, no, leave that wig. You don't need it. So,
that is so beautiful. Yeah. And they were honest too.
Yeah. It made me feel so good. I was like, "Thank you so much." I was like, "Okay, this wig's staying in the car. I'm not putting this wig on."
Oh my God. But look at you. Oh my goodness.
You
look amazing.
This is God. I'm telling you, when I said God preserved me through everything, he really did. He really had his hand in it. And I'm grateful. So this is my way, Dr. Bailey, of giving back is to educate individuals, bring on experts like yourself to let individuals know what to do, that they have options, that they don't have to wait and get a cancer diagnosis, that there are things that they can do to decrease their chances of getting it. So I appreciate this.
Absolutely.
I wish I paid attention to it before I had cancer, but I didn't. I didn't hear the messages when it came to cancer. It was just like, that cancer is for old people, people who smoke. Like, that's not me. Like, I felt like, and you mentioned something earlier about, your dad, he wasn't an unhealthy person, right? And you could do everything. You can exercise, you can eat right, you can not have stress, whatever, and you can still get a cancer diagnosis. So I thought that was an important point that you brought out, because some people may think, I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do. I don't have to worry about it. But sometimes cancer just happens.
Yeah. And I think that's maybe not the most frustrating thing, but so frustrating. So it's like, the FDA tells me to eat kale every Tuesday and then drink this and do that. And then what? And not to say anybody deserves, you can smoke a pack a day, you still don't deserve cancer. I'm not saying that. But, I follow these guidelines and I still get diagnosed. What the heck? So I feel you, but you don't look like what you've been through. Lord have mercy.
I found my purpose. So it was for a purpose, and I found my purpose through my cancer diagnosis. But but I'm happy that I'm here. I'm glad to be alive.
Amen. I'm glad you are too.
But if you are tuned in to Warriors Talk, we're live on Intellectual Radio, and we're talking about A Letter to My Sisters, a breast cancer documentary for young women. And I'm talking to Dr. Bailey, and she is dropping the gems. Dr. Bailey, I do not want to end the show without you talking about this amazing documentary for young women. I know it has already been powerful. I've been seeing it all over the internet. So I want you to talk about, how did you come up with this idea to do it? And what did you feel individuals would walk away with it?
That's powerful. Right out of school, Nia, nobody gets cancer. Kind of like what you said, either you're 2 weeks old or you're 200. There's nothing in between. So in clinic, I would see all these young women, and I became a registered therapist right out of school. So we're both 21, and why are you on this table getting treated? You're not supposed to. That's not what I learned. So it wasn't until a young lady looked just like me. I mean, we had both the box braids, we have gold anklets, we both like the Philadelphia rapper Meek Mill. We were on the same page. And she passed away. And I said, well, hold on. That's like me passing away because we look just alike. And you're only 24. What's happening? And I started to see not necessarily people pass away from it, but just young women coming and mothers who have one child, 2 children, 3 children, and have to cook for their husbands and so have to go to work and do this and the third. And I'm like, well, hold on. How are you doing all this? And why are you even here? And it wasn't until my friend, she was my patient first, but then my friend Jacqueline, she was diagnosed, you know, the one with the gynecology story. And then when she passed away, I said, you know what, I not only have to do something for her, I have to do something for everyone, the community, because somehow we don't know that we can get it. So I interviewed these 3 phenomenal women. The first woman, her name is Janique Rivera. She's Jamaican, Chinese, and Puerto Rican. And she looks like she's all 3 because she really is. But she is, she was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer when she was 29 years old. And she tells her story of what? Advocacy. Let me tell you, Lady ReShell, she said to the people in the breast center, if you don't image my breast, mind you, she had a script and everything. If you don't image my breast, I'm just going to pull it out. Okay. Well, they did because they didn't want to accept the script because they said you're too young for it, whatever. Did the mammogram, and guess what? She had breast cancer. She basically said, I told you so. She went through several rounds of chemo. This one particular chemo, she said, I don't feel right. She said, I feels like the tumor's growing. They said, no, you got to give it a little bit. She said, y'all should know me by now. I will unplug this thing. You better scan me. And guess what, Lady ReShell? Her tumor was growing. She is a metastatic breast cancer survivor. Her tumor went from her breast to her lung, 12 centimeters in her lung, 6 centimeters in her brain. And let me just tell you where she is right now. I don't know right now, but I'm pretty sure she's somewhere with her wife, with her 3 children, cooking dinner, doing something. And I say that to say, although she had a very triumphant story, breast cancer does not have to be a death sentence. And if it was not for her advocacy, she pushed and pushed and pushed. And she is here today doing much better than me and looking much better than me, okay? She don't look like what she's been through. So she tells her story of advocacy. The second woman, her name is Brenda Durantes. She was diagnosed in her 30s and she's Mexican. And she tells her story in Spanish because what she told me a long time ago when I met her, she said, Nia, Mexican women do not get breast cancer. I said, okay. But just knowing that, she basically said, we don't have time for that. We cooking, we cleaning, we doing this. I don't have time to get sick, let alone breast cancer. So she tells her story of how she finally had to listen to her body. Why? Because her body wouldn't let her do anything else but be listened to. So she tells that story. And the last woman, her name is Lynn Mitchell. She is Swedish, Irish, and German. And she was diagnosed in her 40s. And she tells her story of being a strong single mother. She ignored it for a little bit, but she said, you know what? I need to be here for my children. I'm just going to get it done. So I love their stories because it shows that they are all part of this club that they did not want the membership to, number one. But they're different. They have different languages. They have different socioeconomic statuses, but they all are breast cancer thrivers. And they're all here because, like I said, breast cancer does not have to be a death sentence. And I think that's what scares so many people about getting screened and getting results, because they think, oh no, I'm going to die, so I'd rather not know. And I'm not knocking that thought because I validate people's feelings, but knowledge is power for me. So if I find out right now, let's get it done. I am living and I'm going to live. And I'm friends with somebody named Jamil Rivers, and she's a metastatic breast cancer survivor. And she says to me, Nia, we don't even have to eradicate breast cancer. She said, I just want to take the sting out of it. And I'm like, how are you saying that to me? And you're living with metastatic breast cancer. And she explained to me that, you know what? It may always be a thing. Why? Environmentally, maybe genetically. But she said, think about what happened in the 1980s with HIV and AIDS. And I said, okay, that makes sense because my Uncle Kyle passed away in 1985 from it. She said, everybody was dying. Now, if you get diagnosed with it, it's maybe not a diagnosis that you want, but you can live a thriving life. She said, that's how I want breast cancer to be. You know, it's shocking. Oh my gosh, I don't want it, but I can still live. I can still live 30 years from now. Okay. You know, still a hard pill to swallow. I'm not taking away the severity of it, the seriousness of it. But if you know it's more of a chronic disease, then, it's I would gather it's a little bit easier to swallow that pillow. So that's why I wrote this documentary. And then I had some phenomenal people with me. My friend Jessica Savage Jones from Stand Up to Breast Cancer. She's been rocking with me on this documentary. All of the breast cancer thrivers. And then my friend who did the interview with Brenda in Spanish, she came all the way from California. I live in Philadelphia to interview her because I know a little bit hola como esta, but that's pretty much all I know. So she was so kind enough to interview Brenda, and it's a family affair. My mom, my dad, my brother, they all poured into it, who shot the film, Judy Smith-Bogad and my friend Najee Grant. So I'm very blessed and honored to be able to share their stories, because what people get out of it is, maybe I should have my mammogram, or maybe I should talk to my family about their family cancer history. What is genetic counseling and testing? Maybe I should do it. Clinical trials. You know what? Let me at least talk to my doctor about it. I'm not sure if I still want to do it, but we can at least have that conversation. And that's what I love, those conversations, because out of conversations, a lot can happen. So that's what I'm very excited about, what is sort of birthed from this.
I totally agree with you. People need to see it. They need to hear it. It needs to be to the forefront of their minds so that they can take action with it. So the documentary is something that is needed, and it should be shown all over to young women as well as older women, because we know that young women are not exempt from getting breast cancer. So
Thank you. Appreciate that.
What's next for you, Dr. Bailey?
Oh, Father, help us. We actually have a breast cancer documentary screening at the Philadelphia Museum of Art, October 7th. So right now we're just doing screenings, and that's with the Philadelphia Mayor, Jim Kenney, and then also the Pennsylvania Speaker of the House, Joanna McClinton, and she's a bad woman. She's actually the first African-American woman Speaker of the House. So that's awesome. And we talked about right policy. So this is why we want them to come in to see this documentary, and maybe there can be some moving and shaking going on. And then just aside from that, I don't know what God is doing, but I'm gonna just keep being obedient. A woman reached out to me. Her name is Erica Robinson. She was diagnosed with stage 4B cancer. We're filming her documentary actually this Friday in Virginia. And I think, similar to what you said, your purpose, to tell people stories, because out of that births so much wonderful things, saving lives. And I always want to be a radiation therapist, so I'm not really coming out of that. Maybe I'll just do that 1 or 2 times out the week, because Father, I can't keep waking up at 6 a.m. But I think that's sort of where he's leading me to, just sort of going around telling people stories so that other people can have it resonate with them and maybe save them lives. That story kind of sounds like my story. Maybe I should seek help. So I think that's what's next for me. Just keep telling stories, keep being obedient with my hard-headed self, and just keep going from there.
How can people stay connected to you?
Fantastic question. They can go on my website, drniaimanibailey.com, or you can follow me on Instagram, my personal one, Dr. Nia Imani. Right, that is it. Okay. And then my other one, A Letter to My Sisters 2022, or then my other one, Agape, FYP, IYF, just something, or Facebook, Nia Imani, I don't know, or just text me, whatever, it doesn't matter.
It's on the screen, so you guys connect with her, find out how you can have a viewing of the screening done, and if you want to get some more information on what she's doing. And she also has a book out too, so you guys, she's doing a lot of things. I'm telling you, she's someone that you want to know, you need to know.
Thank you.
Dr. Bailey, thank you so much for sharing your experience, your wisdom, encouraging us today to take action.
Thank you. I so appreciate the time. You have no clue. You came at a great time. I've been missing my grandmother lately, so this is a perfect time. I know she's saying, go ahead, baby. So I appreciate you. You're a blessing. And keep doing what you're doing for the community. Let me tell you something. You are needed and appreciated, even when you feel like you're not. Keep doing it. Keep doing it.
Thank you so much. You're do the same thing. I appreciate you. I appreciate your voice. We need it.
Thank you.
Thank you
I appreciate it.
All right, you guys, my last sponsor of the day as we wrap up is Gloria Dotson with Mary Kay. She's catering to all of your beauty needs from head to toe. You can go to marykay.com/GDOTSON and tell her that Warriors Talk sent you. Warriors Talk is always looking for guests. We have Testimonial Monday. If you would like to share your story, educate and empower individuals with your cancer journey, please inbox me, ready in all capital letters at warriorstalk1@gmail.com so that you can share your cancer story, your journey with someone, empower them. Don't go anywhere, you guys. Coming up next at 7 p.m. is The People Show with Mark Wallace and Charles Thomas. I will leave you with these words of wisdom. Cancer is not a death sentence, but it is an awakening to live your best life. Join me next Monday at 6 p.m. right here on Intellectual Radio. As always, thank you for tuning in to Warriors Talk with author and founder Lady ReShell, where we are changing lives one warrior at a time.
Thank you for listening to this week's edition of Warriors Talk with Lady ReShell. To find out more about Warriors Talk, follow at Warriors Talk, the number 1, on all social media outlets, and Warriors Talk with Lady ReShell on YouTube. Please join us next week and every Monday evening at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time on IntellectualRadio.com for Warriors Talk with Lady ReShell, where we encourage, educate, and empower you into action.